Welcome, my brothers and sisters. Greetings from the Sudds-R-Us podcast, hosted by Irene and Ben Sudderth Jr. We thankful once again we can come before you on this, our second season, episode 5, where we continue to give you the concepts of the circle of love. And we're always focusing on God, marriage, family, and life. And now in this second season, we're also continuing with the topic from whence we come. And we're focusing on that number one thing, which is life.
Thank you so much for tuning in once again. We're going to reflect on our discussion from last week, again, from whence we came or from whence we've come. And we reflect on the fact that we as a people are often thought to lack the mental or intellectual capacity to be productive citizens. And unfortunately, that is probably the thought process of a lot of our Caucasian friends or not friends, but we are just the opposite. I do believe that we are productive citizens and that we are strong in character and that we all strive for excellence. So we can always prove that to be the opposite. We also talked about education is the key to advance in life. And Nelson Mandela had a wonderful quote that read, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." So if we continue on that track and really instill in our children and our grandchildren and generations to come that education is key. And also we talked about an educated Black man and an educated Black woman is a powerful force that no one can stop, no one can halter, and no one can hinder.
That's right.
Education helps you become responsible citizens, to be self-sufficient. We talked about also how we can get better paying jobs. And the main thing that we do need to improve upon is to maintain a comfortable, struggle-free lifestyle, and also learn how to save and to invest. And then we talked about several HBCUs on last week. Of course, my husband's alumni of Johnson C. Smith University, Morehouse College, Tuskegee University, North Carolina A&T, Howard University, as well as Spelman College. Now we're going into a little bit more about our life topic. And today our subtopic is going to be historical and Black, 365. And we as a people, again, we make history every day. And if our history would be portrayed correctly and accurately, then that would be presented as such. But that's okay, which is the reason why we have to first live honorably and make historical moves and know our history for ourselves, and then pass it on and teach it to the generations to come. So on today, we're going to talk about first about the A&T 4. And I know we captured a little bit of that last week, but in doing more research and reading, these 4 brothers were phenomenal men. And they are known as the civil rights era in the 1960s. And so their names are Ezell Blair Jr., Franklin McLean, Joseph McNeil, and David Richmond. They were 4 freshman students at North Carolina A&T College, and they initiated the lunch counter sit-in demonstrations in Greensboro, North Carolina on February 1st, 1960. They became known as the A&T 4, and their nonviolent protests started a wave of similar sit-ins that played a key role in raising awareness and ending segregation in North Carolina and across the South. Now, Blair was also known as Jabril Kazan. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But he recounts on the night before, which was January 31st, 1960. And he said that we decided we were going to request equal service for all Americans at F.W. Woolworth's lunch counter on Monday, February 1st, 1960.
Mm-hmm.
And so on that day, these four brothers, they refused to leave Woolworths, one of the world's largest retailers during that time, after they had been denied service. Now, we were born in 1959. I was born in August. My husband born in April. So we were not even a year old when this took place. And to be honest, as we grew older, I can speak for myself. I personally did not know about the North Carolina A&T 4. And of course, we frequented Woolworths all the time in downtown Hickory. And I'm sad to say that I was not aware of North Carolina A&T 4 for a long time. But Franklin McCain later said he felt that this could have been the last day of his life, but that he felt that they had absolutely no choice to do what they did. And they felt that what they were doing was the right thing to do. Despite being scared, the men stood their ground. McCain compared themselves to Mack trucks because there was simply no way that they could move them from their seats at that counter.
Wow.
What a determination. They were considered themselves as Mack trucks. The longer the brothers sat, the more McCain realized that no one was stopping them. He later said that he thought to himself, maybe they can't do anything to us. And maybe we can keep it up. What faith and determination they had. So 10 days later, the protests had spread like a wildfire into 15 cities in 5 different states. And the success of the movement helped prove that nonviolent and mobilized citizens that were awakened in their spirit could in fact make a profound difference. Now, in that day, Dr. Martin Luther King even credited the sit-ins, giving a new energy and some fire to the civil rights movement. Can you imagine having Dr. King announce that to these 4 men? What an impact that made. Dr. King was exemplifying sheer leadership in the various nonviolent boycotts, marches, and rallies during the 1960s. Now, that's the key word. If we could just get our brothers and sisters to just practice the nonviolent concept that Dr. King so much believed in, we would not be experiencing all of these deaths within our own communities. Nelson Mandela said, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. These brothers were bold, they were brave, they were fearless, even though I'm sure they were afraid at times, courageous and full of determination. Yet, here's that key word again, they were non-violent. They just sat there. Which is evident that we as a people, again, can get results absent violence, shooting, and killing each other. Now, events that occurred as a result of this bold action by these 4 young men included, on February 2nd, 1960, 25 other students from A&T and other Greensboro colleges and universities joined them. And during the next 10 days, students across the state participated in similar sit-ins. And by the 3rd week of February 1960, the shortest month of the year, Black History Month, demonstrations had spread to over 250 major cities and towns in the U.S., in which over 400 demonstrations took place by the end of 1960. And as a result, Woolworths was desegregated in 5 months by the end of July 1960. That's the impact that we need to continue to make on this world. And as a result of this movement, significant events in civil rights history occurred. One is the passage of the Civil Rights Bill of 1960, which is a U.S. federal law that was supposedly established to prohibit local voter registration polls from prohibiting others to vote. Meaning us as Black people. Now, y'all know what I'm getting to. That's 1960, and here we are in 2021, 59 years later, and this bill has yet to be fully implemented. As you know, we are now back in the South, having moved from California after 35 years. But having grown up here, we never forgot the experiences that we had growing up in the South. And though we couldn't vote, we heard so much about our parents and our forefathers and how they fought and bled and died to allow us that right. And so somewhat of a flashback occurred during these last 3 election cycles. Especially the governorship of Georgia, where Stacey Abrams was literally cheated out of the governorship, and how the state of Secretary of State was in charge of the election, and all sorts of things were going on to where our people were standing in line for hours and hours and hours. It was just ridiculous. And then the presidency of the United States, we heard about so much voter suppression that is were going on during that time, as well as the Senate runoff in Georgia, how the recount and all of these outrageous accusations took place of people voting that were dead. I mean, it's just amazing how this bill has yet to be implemented. But let me move on. So another impact was the Interstate Commerce Commission ruling in September of '61 against racial segregation on interstate carriers and terminals to ensure that fair rates and to eliminate race discrimination. And so to this day, we're able to travel amongst the U.S. hopefully without any race or rate discrimination. The legacy of these 4 heroes proved the true potential and appeal of nonviolence. It was their protests that became the model and inspiration of later civil rights movements, anti-war and women liberation movements. These 4 young Black men forever changed the course of history by their bravery and their courage. So we thank God that they sat down and also took a stand for what was right. So February 1 is a monument that has been erected on the North Carolina A&T campus. And it was named in 2002 as a dedication to Blair, McCain, McNeil, and Richmond. And they are also known as the Greensboro Four. So their sculpture. Last week we talked about how our Caucasian friends, they have contributed a lot to civil rights. And so we are not going to sit here and act like they are the enemy or they are not helping us in this movement, because they did. And they contributed money to the colleges, HBCUs. And this young man, his name was James Barnhill. He is the sculptor of this 15-foot bronze and marble monument that is located on North Carolina A&T's campus. And he, amongst others, are forever remembered in the historical books of Black history as contributing to our Black history and the monuments and the contributions that they've made. And so I often wondered, so where are these young men now? Are they still living? But before they died, North Carolina A&T gave them an honorable doctorate degree. That was on May, that was in May of 19. I just lost my place here. But that was years later that they were acknowledged. However, one of them, McCain, he had died due to respiratory complications. And so they actually presented his family with the doctoral at his service. And so there are 2 that are remaining, and that is Ezell Blair and Joseph McNeil. They are the 2 surviving members of the Greensboro Four. And so we honor them today. We acknowledge their contributions, their sacrifice, all that they did to make sure that we are able to now walk about this country and carry ourselves upright and do what's right and be honored as the people that we are. And so we'll move forward to the next segment of our episode.
Wow. The A&T Greensboro Four. Well, yes. What a powerful civil rights movement. And we definitely celebrate them brothers for what they did and what they stood for, and the changes that they have made. But when we look at integration and segregation, it's interesting. A lot of people who haven't really lived in that era, especially some young people now, they would always say, or feel that we should have been content with segregation. And the reason they felt that or feel that way is because we had thriving businesses, we had professional people, we had medical professionals, we had schools, we had HBCUs that were just striving and very successful in the Black community. So they felt that the unity within our family structure was so strong, and there was we had peace for the most part, between our races. So they feel that our independence had been compromised and basically destroyed because of integration. Now, the prime example of that, in our hometown of Hickory, North Carolina, we're talking about unity and success. In the segregated high school, it was called Ridgeview High, which is also Ridgeview Panthers. And this particular high school football team in 1964 did something that was unheard of. That's why they're titled the Untouchables. They went undefeated and unscored on the entire year, all the way through the state championship. Now, I suggest that you go on YouTube and take a look at the documentary because it is powerful. But they were looking at how we were so successful as a community to be able to accomplish something that unachievable. I mean, we hit the record books when it came to that, but it was through a segregated school. Now, what happened is that in that particular instance, we had cousins of ours that were on the team, actually. One of our cousins, Jennifer Jobo Lutz, who's now a pastor in North Carolina, he was a starting lineman. Then we had Doug Baumgartner, who was I guess you could call him the famous running back. He was a star running back. And both of them got scholarships to Winston-Salem State University. Then you had our cousin, John Thompson, who went on to play professional football in the NFL, actually played for the Minnesota Vikings. So, and even the marching band was outstanding. I mean, they had the band leader or the drum major. They would bring him in an ambulance and back up the ambulance. Now, back in the 60s, the ambulance wasn't the van style model we have now. It's more like a station wagon. Exactly. But JP would jump out of the back and he would high step to the 50-yard line, and the band would come out and they were marching. So we were very excited about the success of that football team and also the band, because the players, the coaches, the students, they were all dedicated, they were disciplined, they were determined to win. And that's what it took. It took a unit that will come together as one in order to win. So when you look at the success that they had, it was through a segregated school. And if you don't look at that particular model as what we can do as a people, then they feel that because of integration, we lack the same type of drive, the same type of discipline, because now we're integrated with another race. Just like we talked about last week, we talked about how alumni of different universities, since I mentioned Winston-Salem State University, we have some relatives that are alumni of Winston-Salem State. And if we don't mention that particular university, I'm gonna pause right here. They would definitely won't forgive us, especially our Uncle Walt Childs. He would let us hear it from here to Kingdom Come, that we didn't mention Winston-Salem State. So let me just pause right here to mention that particular HBCU that our cousins went to, our uncle graduated from, and it's Winston-Salem State University. It was founded as Slater Industrial Academy on September the 28th, 1892. It began with 25 pupils, one teacher, in this single frame structure. But then it grew. And because it grew in 1895, the school was recognized by the state of North Carolina. And in 1899, it was chartered by the state as Slater Industrial and Slater Normal School. Then in 1925, in North Carolina General Assembly renamed the school Winston-Salem Teachers College.
Mm-hmm.
And the North Carolina State Board of Education also allowed the college to award elementary teaching education degrees, making it the first Black institution to provide this specialized training. Another one of our cousins received her degree from there,
Right.
Sue Carolyn Carson Hodge. She received her degree from Winston-Salem Teachers College.
Mm-hmm.
The School of Nursing was established in 1953, offering baccalaureate degrees. In 1963, the North Carolina General Assembly authorized changing the name from Winston-Salem Teachers College to Winston-Salem State College. A statute designating Winston-Salem State College as Winston-Salem State University received legislative approval in 1969. And on July the 1st, 1972, Winston-Salem State University became one of the 16 constituent institutions of the University of North Carolina, which is in Chapel Hill.
Wow.
Let me just give you a few alumni, and then I'll move on. Notable alumni, of course, I'm going to have to start with Stephen A. Smith.
Yes.
One of the highest paid sports commentators and American sports television personalities, sports radio host, sports journalist. He started his career in Philadelphia as a beat writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer. But now he's a commentator of that debate show that we love so much.
Yes.
If we miss it in the morning, we'll tape it, called First Take. And he's also doing guest appearances now on General Hospital.
Right.
Another alumni is Louis Farrakhan Sr.
Wow.
Now, he was born Louis Eugene Walcott, May 11th, 1933, formerly known as Louis X. He's a religious leader, a political activist who heads the Nation of Islam. Early in his career, he served as the minister of mosque in Boston and also Harlem, and was appointed national representative of the Nation of Islam by former leader Elijah Muhammad. My last notable alumni, is Vernon Earl Monroe.
Wow.
He was born November 21st, 1944. He's a former professional basketball player. He played for the Washington Bullets, but he was really famous for playing for the New York Knicks or the Knickerbockers. During his career in the NBA, both teams have retired his number. Due to his on-court success and flashy styles, he was nicknamed the Black Jesus and Earl the Pearl Monroe.
Wow.
He was also inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. So on the flip side of the coin, we're talking about integration and segregation. See, on the other side of the coin is that discrimination from being segregated denied us having access. That's why the A&T 4 or Greensboro 4 did that sit-in. Even though we had unity within our community, we were segregated. It seemed like we were more closer together. It seemed like we were more in tune with supporting one another, encouraging one another. But on the flip side, it also denied us from having access to new books, up-to-date and modern facilities, state-of-the-art technology, new equipment, electronics and materials, better constructed buildings and homes and schools, better positions with high-paying salaries, mostly received in corporate America's white corporations. And another example of this, when we go back to Ridgeview High School, you know, they had a football field that was called the Dust Bowl.
The Dust Bowl.
Because they didn't have any grass. And it was always interesting on Friday nights when you get close to the stadium and you look and you see the lights and you see the dust all up in the lights. You know, Ridgeview Panthers was on the field taking care of their opponent. But on the flip side of that, why was that? Because they had to use that field as the practice field, the playing field, plus the school had to have their activities on that field. So they wasn't able to afford another field, so they didn't have grass to play on. And if you look at the documentary, they said when they went to the visiting stadium and they were able to play on grass, it was like, you know, they were in heaven. They had to play on grass. But look at this. They also had used equipment. and the head coach would have to meet the sports. I guess you can call him the owner of a sporting goods store. You had to meet him. The head coach was also my godfather. Let me give a shout out to Jap Davis, Samuel Jap Davis. He had to meet the sporting goods store owner or sporting goods store employee on the under late at night to get updated equipment. If their helmet break or something happened with the shoulder pads or something happened with their uniform, they had to meet on the under in order to get updated equipment because they didn't want this black team, which was a segregated school, to have updated modern equipment. They didn't want us to have new equipment. All they want us to do, instead of having state-of-the-art equipment, to use secondhand, used equipment. But even though we didn't have new equipment, we still made history. Even though we was working with secondhand equipment, we still made history. And the team was so popular that the white people would come all across the state into the black neighborhood to see this team play. And the high school closed the following year because of integration. And because of that, all of the best players went across town, we like to say across the tracks, to Hickory High. And it was never the same because of that, the aura of that high school and the pride and of being a part of the Hickory Ridgeview Panthers was something that was never duplicated. And because of that, a lot of people say, well, where was the benefit of this integration when we lose that type of pride and that type of camaraderie as a unit and as a community? And let me give you this one more thing about Hickory High. The coach, who I mentioned, was my godfather. During integration, he was able to get a physical education teaching job at a junior high school. He was assistant coach of the 9th grade football team. I actually played on that team at a predominantly white junior high school. And this is the same coach that took his team, high school team, called the Untouchables, undefeated and unscored on. And if you look at their history, that entire era in the 60s and the late 50s, Ridgeview always went to the state championship. They were always a winning team.
And they still hold one of the records, right?
Still hold that record. There hasn't been a team.
To this day.
Haven't been a team, high school, college, or professional team that has went undefeated and unscored on for the entire year. And also a thing that would happen in that particular era is because of segregation, is when we attended the white movie theater, and I can never forget that. We attended the white movie theater, we had to enter through an alleyway and go up the back stairs to sit in the balcony. We couldn't sit on the main level at that particular theater, Carolina Movie Theater. I never forget the name. And we wanted refreshments. We couldn't go to the front of the concession stand. We had to go down the back steps to a back door to the concession stand. And they had a little slot, a hole in the door where they would give us our popcorn and candy and little treats. And I would always look through that hole and see the pretty glass in the concession stand and the pretty carpet. And I always wanted to go through the front door. So even though there was a lot of benefits that came from the unity and the camaraderie in segregation, we wanted to integrate, just like those A&T Greensboro Forest City, because we wanted to be able to go through the front door. We wanted to be able to sit on the main floor. We wanted to be able to eat from the front of the restaurant instead of having to go through the back of the restaurant.
Same privilege.
And we wanted to be able to eat from in the concession stand and buy things from the pretty glass concession stand display instead of going through the back. So as we mentioned on last episode, the white-owned businesses and institutions caused envy, jealousy, animosity, and friction between black people because of the favoritism that was shown to our light-skinned sisters and brothers. Just like it was in the slavery days, because we mentioned that when the slave master raped the young slave girls and the offspring were able to work in the house and wear the nice clothes and to eat the best food, our light-skinned brothers and sisters had the same benefits, or they were awarded the same benefits in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s because of their skin color and because of their biological relationship with the Caucasian people.
Yes.
Now, I know this for a fact because my great-grandmother. She was half white, half Native American. And because of that, we had access to purchase a lot of property in Hickory, North Carolina. And we own property now, and I refuse to sell that property because of the heritage and what it really means to our family. Actually, our home church bought a piece of the property, and that's home church, Hartsel Memorial United Methodist Church, is still there today, right behind our house, right behind my grandmother's and my grandfather's house. But we have missed on a lot of that heritage and to pass down to our children because of that. So that's why we're talking about the circle of love. It's a circle that's also inclusive, but it's also a circle that expands when we share the information and we also share the things that God has blessed us with. So because of the frustrations and being treated differently and unfairly, like second-class citizens, especially among the Black men who couldn't express their grievances, caused a lot of domestic violence, child molestation, and sexual abuse and adultery in the Black community. See, that was kept secret. And a lot of our ancestors refused to share the details of this particular episode. But that's one of the things that came out of the segregated South. So there was a lot of positive and productive families that had some level of success when it comes to segregation. But there was also some negative and some dysfunction families that came out of that desegregated South because of the cruel and harsh treatments that we were receiving. That's why the civil rights leaders fought for integration, for Black people to have access to the small businesses, the same businesses, and institutions that the white people had. We had to pay a price, but they felt it was worth it. Can you continue? Yes. Okay, I will continue. Now, one thing integration didn't do, unfortunately, it didn't change the heart of the racist and bigoted people of our country. The hatred of our people, even among ourselves, like I mentioned before, they pinned us against one another, light skin and dark skin. We like to say red bone and blue bone. They pitted us against one another. And because of that, it really affected our relationship. And now we can see the difficulties that we have in some of our inner cities with a lot of Black on Black crime because we lost that pride and that unity of the oneness. But the one thing about this hatred of our people, also among ourselves, I just want to share with you that it will always exist until Christ comes back. Because this is Satan's domain. And when Adam disobeyed God by following his wife, and his wife disobeyed God by following the instructions of the devil, of that serpent, that evil one, that allows sin to enter into this world. And humans have been jealous and carried hatred in their heart ever since. That's why Cain killed Abel. The first two brothers created on this planet had animosity and anger and jealousy towards one another. Let me give you this scripture. 1 John 3:8-10, it says, "He that committeth sin is of the devil. For the devil sinned from the beginning. For this purpose, the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. In this, the children of God are manifest. And the children of the devil, whosoever doeth not righteousness is not of God, neither he that loveth not his brother." Because we are the children of God, my brothers and sisters, we have still achieved and accomplished a lot through all of the discrimination and the unfair treatments because of our resiliency and our fortitude. Even though we live in a sinful world and have been discriminated against time after time, we have still accomplished and completed a lot. As the children of Israel were chosen by God, but the Black people were the first creation, are the children of God. Not chosen, but are God's children.
That's right.
So we must love our brothers and sisters. We must love, we must treat them right and doing whatever we can to encourage and support each other.
Yes.
And it starts at the home. It starts with our immediate family. It starts with our circle of love, and then it can extend outward. You know, we looked at opportunities that we have as African Americans, and we also look at the advantages and disadvantages that we have in integration and segregation, but also resulted in this particular, when we were first in segregation, it resulted in losing a lot of things. It resulted in losing patents and ownership and subsequently the revenue and the royalties. The same happened in the music industry.
Yes.
They would pay the artists some money up front.
Or a Cadillac.
Or a Cadillac, and we recommend you watch Cadillac Records.
Right.
That's a good movie that displays how we were unfairly treated and our rights were taken from us. Our rights of ownership was taken from us because that was emphasized the importance. That's why we emphasize the importance of getting an education in our last episode. So when you learn about the business techniques and learn about the strategies of how to be owners and not be taken advantage of as overworked, underpaid employees, then you can understand the benefits of ownership and the benefits of being able to be your own boss and also be your own owner. And we stress the importance of education because Howard grad Sean Puffy Combs and Morehouse alum Spike Lee are a prime example of what a college education can do for you. The both of them developed their own companies in order to own their own rights and subsequent revenues of their own companies. Then individuals like Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry took it to a total another level with owning their own network and movie studio. Let me give you my Black History moment. You want to give my Black History moment now?
I'm going to do the scripture.
Okay. Okay. So did you mention where they can find us?
I'll do that afterwards.
Okay. So I'm going to give you my Black History moment.
Okay.
Which is Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry was born Emmett Perry Jr., September the 13th, 1969. He is an actor, director, producer, screenwriter. In 2011, Forbes listed him as the highest paid man in entertainment. Earnings of $130 million between May 2010 and May 2011. His worth now is $1 billion today. Perry created and performed the Medea character. Y'all know Medea. She's an elderly, feisty, tough woman. But Perry films vary in styles, from orthodox filmmaking techniques to film production to live stage plays. Many of Perry's stage plays films have been subsequently adapted as films. Perry wrote and produced many stage plays during the 1990s and the early 2000s. He developed several television series, most notable Tyler Perry's House of Pain, which ran for 8 seasons on TBS from June 2006 to August 2012. On October the 2nd, 2012, Perry struck an exclusive multi-year partnership with Oprah Winfrey and her Oprah Winfrey Network called The OWN. The partnership was largely for the sake of bringing scripted television to OWN, based on Perry's previous success in this area. Perry has created multiple scripted series from the network, like The Haves and The Have-Nots, being its most successful one. The Have and Have-Nots has given OWN its highest rating to date as of 2014, with the series also referred to as OWN's biggest success story. With this weekly dose of soapy fun filled with typical betrayals and affairs and manipulation. Some other successful movies were Daddy's Little Girl, that grossed $31 million. Why Did I Get Married? It grossed $21 million.
Wow.
Meet the Browns, that grossed $21 million in one weekend. The Family That Praise grossed $37 million.
Wow.
Just to give you Tyler Perry's accolades and his accomplishments. But let me tell you where he came from. Because I mentioned earlier how even though we had that unity in that segregated South, but there was some negativity and there was some problems that we had to face as Black people because of the dysfunction. Perry was born Emmett Perry Jr. in New Orleans, Louisiana, the son of Willie Maxine Perry, née Campbell, and Emmett Perry Sr., a carpenter. He has 3 siblings. Perry once said his father answered everything his answer to everything, was to beat it out of you. As a child, Perry once went so far as to attempt suicide in an effort to escape his father's beatings.
My God.
In contrast to his father, though, his mother took him to church every week, where he sensed a certain refuge and a sense of contentment, and where he was able to have a spiritual content embedded in him. At the age of 16, he had his first name legally changed from Emmett to Tyler in an effort to distance himself from his father. Many years later, after seeing the film Precious, Perry was moved to reveal for the first time that he had been molested by a friend's mother at the age of 10. He was also molested by 3 men prior to this, and later learned his own father had molested his friend. Then a DNA test taken by Perry indicated that Emmett Sr. was not Perry's biological father. This is an example of what I was talking about. It's unfortunate that these things happen in a lot of our Black communities.
Right.
But because of segregation, the frustration that built up in these Black men caused them to go home and unfortunately take it out on their spouse or take it out on their children. While Perry, he didn't graduate high school, he did earn his GED. In his early 20s, he watched an episode of the Oprah Winfrey Show. He heard someone describe the sometimes therapeutic effect the act of writing can have, enabling the author to work out his or her own problems. This comment inspired him to apply himself to a career in writing. He soon started writing the series of letters to himself, which became the basis of the musical I Know I've Been Changed. Then in 2015, Perry acquired the 330-acre former Confederate military base, Fort McPherson, located here in Atlanta. Isn't that interesting? It was converted into a studio. It was a Confederate Army base that trained white men how to fight in order to continue with the status quo of slavery in the South. Is now owned by a Black man. How ironic is that? The studio is used to film HBO films, versions of The Immortal Life of Harriet Lacks, and is currently an ongoing use for the television series The Walking Dead. 50,000 square feet of the site are dedicated to standing permanent sets, including a replica of the luxury hotel, lobby, a White House replica, a 16,000 square foot mansion, a mock cheap hotel, a trailer park set, and a real 1950 style diner that was relocated, from a town 100 miles away.
Wow.
It's also host to 12 sound stages named after highly accomplished African American in the entertainment industry. The blockbuster movie Marvel film Black Panther was the first to be filmed on one of the new stages at Tyler Perry Studios. As announced personally by Tyler Perry on his Instagram account in February 19th, 2018. Tyler Perry Studio is one of the largest film studios in the nation and established Tyler Perry as the first African American to outright own a major film studio. He states the main reason he did it was because Hollywood wouldn't allow him to produce and direct his own movies in their studio.
That's it.
Perry has been blessed God has truly blessed him because of his faith.
Wow.
He has become good friends with Janet Jackson, Will Smith, and like I mentioned, Oprah Winfrey. Many of the themes in his works reflect theology and social behavior indicative of predominantly Black church culture, such as the many scenes in both his stage and scene work that features churches, settings, and worship style commonly found in predominantly African American churches, including showcases of gospel music and artists. Tyler Perry is a Black history moment, a living legend.
Black history, that's right.
And he has been very generous in giving back to the Black community, especially during this pandemic. He's been giving thousands of dollars to those to shop at Walmart. He's been giving a lot to help with educating young Black men and women in schools. So we just want to recognize Tyler Perry as we begin this Black History Month. We're going to give you some Black history all month. So we just wanted to recognize him.
Very nice. We hope that you have enjoyed this historical moment of North Carolina A&T, as well as the desegregation and segregation, and to wrap it up with Tyler Perry. And so we did forget to give you all of our details, how to find us. But first, we want to acknowledge our son, Mr. Podcaster himself, who got us up and running in this podcast arena. He has a BS3 radio where he hosts multiple podcasters from all walks of life, mainly sports, but we also have music, life, relationships. You can find him on all social media platforms, IG, Facebook, YouTube as well. He has a whole channel on YouTube. And he also does coaching. He's offering that to those that may be considering getting started and just don't know where to begin. And you can find him at bs3coaching.square.site, S-I-T-E. And like I said, you can find us on Facebook, IG, Twitter, iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. That's all of the hard work and efforts of our son. We are now on all of those platforms. All you need to type in is Sudds-R-Us, just as it appears on the screen. Once you type in Sudds, S-U-D-D-S, it should pop up. And so we do have one last scripture for today. And when we really think about all that we've suffered as a people, all that we've had to endure, and all that God has allowed us to accomplish and surpass in our lifetime, this scripture really relates to our unending awareness of where our help comes from. And we know that it comes from the Lord, none other than the Lord himself. And I'll be reading from Psalms 115 and verse number 1. Not to us, O Lord, not to us, but to your name goes all of the glory for your unfailing love and your faithfulness.
Yes.
God has been good to us. And now we see that God has continued to bless our people. And we pray God's blessings over you for the remainder of this weekend. Happy Black History Month. We're going to be tapping in all month. And enjoy your Super Bowl on tomorrow.
Go Chiefs. Yeah.
Go Chiefs. That's right. Tom Brady, he's done. But enjoy. God bless.
God bless.
Love you all. Thank you for tuning in.
Be blessed. See you next week.
Bye-bye.